All right, I think we're about ready. There may be a couple more people joining, but we'll go ahead and get started. Uh, Rick, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. Well, welcome everyone to our AI for Small Credit Union case study. We want you to think of this like a fireside chat where we'll be talking to two industry leaders from both the CU leadership point of view, but also take into consideration a technology point of view. We'll discuss the problems that credit unions face, especially small credit unions, and how those problems have been addressed and solved using AI. My name is Rick Cranston. For those of you that know me, I look forward to chatting with you later. I'll be your host today. I've been in the credit union financial services space for multiple decades. I've co-founded a number of fintech companies over the years. I've worked in an association for 10 years. I'm really passionate about bringing new technologies and new innovation to the industry, especially for small credit unions. Next, let me introduce Nathan Grossenbach, the CEO of Shoreline Credit Union, $128 million headquartered CU headquartered in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Nathan's a CPA and an MBA and has been with Shoreline for 11 years and has been the president and CEO since 2017. Pete Lunenfeld, also on the call with me today, is the founder and CEO of Current Wave AI. Pete has been in technology leadership positions for the last 20 years. He's been the CTO for software startups that grew from 2 employees to 165, and also the CTO for a very large software as a service company where he oversaw more than 350 engineers and developers. Pete started Current Wave in 2023 because he saw the opportunity to build practical AI solutions that benefit credit unions of all sizes and beyond. Let's start with you, Nathan. Nathan, first question. I went out and asked some of my peers, some of the friends that I have in the marketplace, what was on their minds. And here's the first question. As a CEO of a smaller credit union, what are some of the daily challenges that you face?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be very unique. I think we all kind of share in the same struggles every day. And for me, we have a team of 35 to 36 employees, but our industry gets more and more complex every day, and it's very difficult to find that balance between putting people who are member facing to the people that need to support policy, procedure, and regulations. And a lot of that extra work falls upon I call them managers, supervisors, or executives. And because of that, they're balancing the strategy, they're balancing the regulatory environment, and we're still dealing with day-to-day things too, staffing issues, performance evaluations, the things that you would expect of a supervisor. And so just being flat can really take over a person's day pretty quickly. And oftentimes, unfortunately, it's a strategy that is sacrificed from it. Other than that, I think staffing continues to be a bit of a struggle. We have so many talented staff members on our team, but unfortunately, when you have really good people, there's a little bit of churn. They find other opportunities elsewhere for promotions that we can't offer as a smaller credit union. And just making sure that we put forth not only talented folks, but knowledgeable and experienced, and know how to handle those situations as they come up. That can be a bit of a struggle. And kind of in that same note, trying to bridge that gap between the churn from employees and how do we train them. The training side, we recently hired a training coordinator. She is fantastic. But training is not a 2-week thing. It's an ongoing, no matter what role you're in. And when the policy procedures are updated at least annually and regulations come out all the time, how in the world do you stay on top of all of that? And so I'd say those are probably the three biggest struggles that we face right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. I appreciate that answer. I'm pretty sure the other leaders on the line with us today can identify with all of those issues. I can tell you from my personal experience and talking with executives over the years, those are pretty universal problems that they all face, but especially, again, the smaller CUs. So, Pete, next to you, why did you start Current Wave? What were the problems you wanted to solve here?
Well, Nathan did a pretty good job of listing some of those common problems that we wanted to solve. As a technologist, when generative AI kind of reared its head in 2022, it didn't take long for the AI hype train to just go crazy, right? And if you guys remember from even just a year ago, AI was going to take everybody's job. Nobody was going to have to work another day in their life because everything would be so easy. And clearly, those things did not happen. What ended up happening is AI, like every other technology, just became a new tool in our toolbox. But you have to use the right tool for the job, if you know what I mean. And we wanted to solve some problems with current wave AI that were what we call high value and low risk, the low fruit in the industry, if you will. And where we decided to focus was knowledge management. Knowledge management is one of those things that everybody has to do, especially if you're a business that has a lot of policies and procedures and processes and regulations that your teams need to look up in order to get their jobs done. Does this sound familiar, credit union leaders? You know, you guys have just a ton of processes and procedures. And what's interesting is it doesn't matter if you're a large credit union or a small credit union, you all basically have the same regulations and same products to serve. So a smaller credit union actually has more pressure to document all these things and more importantly, make them accessible so their employees to answer member questions or to get their jobs done can find these processes, procedures, and policies. And that's why we created Current Wave AI to solve this. Because what we found was most companies, not just most credit unions, but most businesses across all industries are terrible at this. Its documentation is just a chore, right? And nobody likes doing it, nobody likes organizing it. So what tends to happen is things get messy. And the people who pay for that are our employees and our members. So we wanted to solve three things. So if you think about when one of your tellers or one of your contact center agents gets a question from a member, they have to first find the answer to that question. Like, what are the ID requirements to do an international wire transfer? I'm just throwing that out there. The first thing your employee has to do, if they don't know it off the top of their head, they have to go find that document. Is it in their intranet? Is it on a network drive and 3 folders deep? Is it on the website? Is it on SharePoint? That's hard. The next thing they have to do is they have to read that document. That may be page 37 in a 100-page training manual. And we're asking them to do that reading while there's a member waiting for them and tapping their foot and getting irritated. And lastly, we need our our employee to answer that member's question or to do that task in the same voice that we want all of our corporate communications to have. And it just turns out that AI knocks all of these things out of the park. It's great at finding stuff, great at reading stuff, and great at answering in a certain tone. So we found that AI was a really good solution to help an organization like a credit union, especially a small one, kind of equalize the playing field so we can supercharge the credit union employee to look like everyone's an expert, whether they've been with the credit union 20 years or 2 weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that answer. Nathan, I'd love to hear more about your experience implementing Current Wave. And in particular, comment a little bit about the fear of AI. There are still lots of credit unions out there that are nervous about AI. Are we going to lose jobs? Is it going to be really difficult? Can you talk about how you implement it?
Yeah, 100%. So, I'll go back a little bit. I think it was about this time last year was the first time we'd really been talking with someone about an AI solution, and it ended almost as quickly as it had started. Just, the platform wasn't right. It was pretty cumbersome. It seemed like it would do a nice job, but the second that the price dropped, we're like, yeah, nope, that's not going to work for our size. So that was over. And ironically, I was at a mid-sized CEO roundtable here in Wisconsin and saw Pete do a little demo. And I kind of figured, well, this is he's got this very practiced. He knows exactly what questions to ask. I don't think that this is actually going to work in the real world, but we sat, we had lunch together. He talked a little bit through the logic and he demoed it for us. And honestly, I was blown away with how well it worked. Just even in our environment, when we had launched it, our staff could have those same reservations as we did. It's just an advanced Control F. They're just going to find something in a document. But what we didn't realize is it's like doing Control F across 400 documents, and it shows you exactly where it gets to that answer quickly. And so for us, the hesitation certainly was there before it. Pete and his team did a phenomenal job onboarding. Was there a little bit of work involved with it? Maybe. We had to do policy and procedure cleanup, and we continue to do that through today. But as far as the software goes, the website goes, anything was perfect. I don't think it could have been any easier with it. It was more on our side, but I see it as a benefit. We have, I think, somewhere around 70 policies, countless more procedures, and many times those have to be congruent, and a lot of times they hadn't been. And so during those first couple of weeks of people asking questions of the bot, trying to figure out, okay, where did it pull this answer from? Whoop, our procedure's wrong. That procedure hasn't been updated in 6 months. We need to go and address that. So we are a more efficient organization. It hasn't replaced any staff members, obviously. We're way too small to have that type of impact with it. But what it's done is it's allowed us to do more. And so our service team, which would traditionally be, your MSRs working face-to-face with folks, now just because questions are easier and more accessible, they're able to make phone calls on overdrawn accounts or non-sufficient funds, or some value-added services that we now can do because we have a little bit more staff availability. And then our managers and supervisors, it's been a phenomenal kind of a couple of months here as we talk about our strategy. We're more engaged. The phones are down during our meetings because they're not putting out fires. It's had a very large impact. I can't understate that from our side.
That's terrific. Thank you, Nathan. Pete, I think it's time to prove it. Let's do a quick demo. Can you show the folks a quick example of the tool and how it gets used in practice?
You bet. Let me see if I can get this screen shared up here. You guys will do me a kindness. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
I see it.
Okay, so what you're looking at is Nathan's Shoreline AI Live. So with the gracious permission of Nathan and his team, we're showing you the actual AI that we installed for Shoreline Credit Union. And what's happened at the point that you're seeing right now is we've gobbled up all of Shoreline's policies, procedures, processes, and the regs that they follow. At last count, that was over 440 individual documents. And by that, I mean PowerPoints, Word documents, PDFs, videos, as well as the 60 plus web pages on Shoreline's public website. And what we found was really interesting as we were working with Nathan and team is there are just as many documents that have to be processed and managed for a 30-something employee credit union like Shoreline as there is for a large credit union with hundreds and hundreds of employees, right? So it actually puts more pressure on Nathan and his management team to keep this organized. So that's why we created this. So let me just show you how a regular user, that could be a teller or a loan officer or even someone like Nathan and his management team might use this. So I'm in the AI and I'm just going to ask a question. Who can open an account with Shoreline Credit Union? So what's happening behind the scenes is the AI is chewing through those 500 plus documents in real time, pulling out anything that's relevant in those documents and just straight up answering the question. So you can see before I could even finish reading the question out loud, the AI has already answered with, what counties have eligibility and what kind of family members are eligible. That's great, right? So if I'm the user, without needing to know where those documents originally lived, intranet, network drive, website, I just get an answer. I ask a question, I get an answer. Within 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, I'm done. Compare that to the old way of having to go hunt and fish for that document. But that's not all. The AI is also going to show its work. So if I click citations here, we can see exactly which of the Shoreline documents were used to answer this question. And if I want, I can click one like this account opening procedure here, and the AI is going to display it to the user right in the same screen. And again, it doesn't matter where that document really lives under the hood. We don't want the user to have to pay attention to that. It just opens it. You'll notice this is a 17-page document. And also notice that the AI automatically highlighted and jumped to the first relevant passage in the document that it used to answer this question. So not only can we reference the document, but we can jump to exactly that passage so you can check the work or learn more. So, okay, let's keep going. That was just a simple policy question. What if we ask something procedural? How can I change a payment date for bill pay? Same thing's happening behind the scenes. I ask the question, I just get a straight up answer. Those are my 4 steps. I'm doing that, I'm moving on. We can ask really kind of pointed questions like, what are our wire limit tiers? Same thing. By the time I can even say it out loud, it's already spitting out the answer on what are the wire limits for each particular employee tier. Just easy peasy. Now, it doesn't stop there, right? We can get much more sophisticated. So let's say I have a question. I want to ask, what are the forms of identification required to open a CD? But the member who's sitting in front of me speaks Spanish. I can ask the AI to look this up and answer in Spanish so I can either read this, print this, or discuss this with my non-English speaking member. Let's say it's not Spanish, but they speak it's Mandarin. Just as easy for the AI to translate on the fly with this other language without any of Shoreline's documentation having to be in Spanish or Mandarin or German or French or whatever. All of their documents are in English, but the AI can now freely translate into any language we want. All right, so this by itself is 98% of the game, right? We now have a tool that anybody at the credit union, whether they're a frontline employee that started 2 weeks ago, or management, or anyone in between, they now have a single pane of glass. They ask a question, they get an answer, rinse and repeat. It's just so easy, we don't even really have to train people to use it very much. But we didn't want to stop there. What we really wanted to now add are all of the management tools that Nathan and his executive team can use to now gain insights from all this activity. So one of the common tools we have is what we call our Search Q&A. And what Search Q&A does is it creates an audit trail of every question and answer that anybody in the enterprise asks. So if I'm Nathan as the CEO, there's probably a bunch of really interesting data and insight to gather if I had the time to read every question and answer that came through the system. And for a decent sized credit union like Shoreline, there could be 100 questions a day, 500 questions a week, many thousands a month. But Nathan's a busy guy. He doesn't have a chance to do that. But the cool thing is the AI does. So we can do this. I'll do this live for you. We call this our insights tool. So in real time, the AI is going to analyze the 115 questions that are in this data set. We're going to look up the top trends in the questions. So what are people at Shoreline asking? So Nathan's going to want to know what's hot today, this week, this month. We're going to want to know if there's any interesting insights that the AI can gather. We're going to analyze the users to see who's super active and what are they asking, because we have opportunities to do training sometimes for folks. And maybe what's the most interesting is the analysis of unanswerable questions. And what we mean by that is, what are people asking that the AI cannot answer? This is one of those blind spots people forget they have. So you know about all the documentation that you have, but what you don't know is the documentation you don't have. So the AI is able to peel that back and be able to tell you exactly what is missing. What are the gaps in your documentation? So in this example, folks at Shoreline have been asking about bill of sale requirements for vehicles. So now Nathan and his team can say, oh, we have an opportunity, A, to do new training for our people, and two, to add documentation into the AI for tomorrow so we can start answering those questions. And we have other stuff too. We could go on, and if you let me, I would. We have all of the fun stuff you get with software. We have dashboards. We show you all the activity in a one-stop shop. So Nathan can just pop this up at any time during his day and see who's asking questions, how many questions, what are the classifications, how many questions are about financial products, transactions, lending, operations, etc. But Rick, I know we have other stuff to cover, so I will stop here.
If you don't
Awesome.
mind,
Thank you,
could I
Pete.
just tack on one thing really quick?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So if you go back to the dashboards too, at least when I'm looking at vendors, sometimes we see the dashboards, they look pretty, but we wonder how are we going to use them or are we going to use them? And I will 100% advocate for what you show and what you provide. We have found so many differences in our policies and procedures that we would not have otherwise known without looking at the I'm sorry responses. And then beyond that, just how do we train better? You'd mentioned that, but when you constantly see questions about the same thing, like, was this included in DTI? How do you do this for decedent accounts? I mean, it triggers something in me like, wow, this is really, like you said, a blind spot for us. And a third thing is one of the ways that we have used it that I did not think about prior to launching, but we found out pretty shortly after. Any PDF can technically go into here. And so we've added some NCUA, some DFI here in Wisconsin, some HMDA PDF files to help out with secondary mortgages or regulations that are out there. Again, it's on their website, but you still have to have a working knowledge of how to use the website and how to look those things up. When that PDF is in Ziggy, we call it Ziggy, Current Wave, in the bot, you can just type the question and it'll process all that for you. So it's a one-stop shop, even outside of your internal walls, into other things that impact all our daily lives. And maybe there's things that are important to you, to your credit union that you could put in there as well.
And let me just riff with Nathan for a second, because this is something we see so often when we start to engage with a credit union. Is there seems to be this initial fear because folks universally know that there's kind of a rat's nest with their documentation. They know they have some stuff that might be obsolete. They know they have some stuff, as Nathan said, where you have one document that's in conflict with another document. And it's really easy to get fearful and think, well, I can't even use the AI until I have this big project to clean all that document set up. And the answer is Nathan and team, they did it the exact right way, which is don't be afraid. Just throw all the documents into the AI. Because, well, one, you're not going to probably do that project to clean up your documents anyway. If you haven't done it for the last 5 years, you're not doing it tomorrow. By throwing it in the AI, we let the AI tell you, hey, this document looks obsolete, or hey, these two documents are in conflict with each other. The AI won't know which one's right, but it'll be able to bubble up to your team that you do have an issue and you can clean it up. So just in a few weeks, organically, teams like Shoreline were able to take their documentation, which was pretty good, and make it fantastic because the AI surfaces and bubbles up all this information.
So you triggered one other thought. I apologize. I know we're dragging this on.
No, hit it.
So here's a really ridiculous one, but we refer to our mortgage loan originators as MLOs. However, that term was not, or it was referred to that on our website as well. We didn't call them mortgage loan originators. That's how the general public would think about it. Who can do mortgages, who originates mortgages, who opens those mortgages. Well, we didn't have mortgage loan originator, that phrase, on our website. So when we used Ziggy and we were asking these questions, it kept coming back as, I'm sorry, I can't find this term. That's a relatively common term. So we made that change on our website. And honestly, I think that probably also impacted our SEO score. So if someone is looking for who does mortgages in Manitowoc County, if we don't have that phrase on our website or mortgage loan originators, it's probably not going to pull us up. So just little things like that too, that it's really helped out, getting out of our own acronym world and speaking like the public too.
And you know what, Nathan? We
Awesome.
just got a question from the gallery here. Joel asked a question for you, Nathan. He said, how did implementing the AI change the expectations of employees in their development? He says, do they think I now have a tool all the time that does it for me?
Yeah, it's been a huge improvement. So, and I'll tell you why. So when we make an investment, especially in something like this that is new, we're going to force our staff to use it, at least to start, to get, first couple of weeks or so. We want them to feel it. We want to find the errors. We want to find the issues with it. So anytime one of our managers or supervisors were asked a question that we felt like Ziggy could or should answer it, we said, I'm not going to answer that for you. Go back and look it up yourself. And so we did that for about 2 to 3 weeks. And I think that's when staff got really comfortable with it. And now they use it much more often. And for us, what's really important is that we have someone, he's our digital experience manager. He does a lot more work in it than I do. He's watching those questions come through. So if he sees those repeat questions coming in, or if he finds trends, he can then pick up on, okay, this is a training need and a development need, instead of just, I'm 90% sure this is the correct answer, but I'm gonna use Ziggy to finalize that last 10% to get me all the way there. And so I think it's been a really good improvement for us. It's had less staff involvement for training. Ziggy's much quicker in getting responses over, and it also gets our staff thinking, how do I do this myself? Which is a really good trait to have.
Awesome. All right, Rick,
Awesome,
back to you.
thanks. All right, thank you, Nathan. We got just a couple of minutes left, but I'd like you to emphasize something. I think probably just about every credit union leader out there has been promised by some vendor that it's going to be an easy integration or an easy conversion. It'll be a light lift, technically speaking. Can you talk a little bit about the implementation experience that you had in your credit union?
Yeah. So like you mentioned, we're 130 million in assets. We have about 70 policies, countless more procedures that are there. We really don't have one centralized staff member that looks at policies, procedures all the time. And so what I will tell you is the biggest lift we had was internal. It was really getting through those policies, procedures. We've created a cheat sheet that our digital experience manager will upload, just those one-off questions that we want in Ziggy to answer that's not in policy and procedure. But once we got through that part, everything else was smooth. And what I can tell you is Pete and his team, there was no friction there at all. That website was created, I think, within 2 days of the contract being signed. Pete, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. We had weekly calls for 2 months, I think. And I think both sides felt comfortable to drop that to bi-weekly now. So we still are in really good communication with their team for anything that comes up. They put things in front of us that you should really look at this. These flags are still outstanding. Have you considered updating this on your website? They've been a really, really good resource for us. And I don't think there's one thing I've waited on the current Wave team at all to this point. And so I think we were pretty blessed with good internal policy procedures to start with. But that is the only part that I could think of that would be a little bit of lift on the team, on the credit union team at least.
No, that makes my heart sing, Nathan, to hear about the service.
Yeah.
Just for folks, I've been in the tech and software world my entire career, and I can't tell you how many times as a customer of software, we had a great sales experience, signed the deal, and never talked to another human, right? And everything was like, oh, if you want to create a ticket on the website, go for it. We'll get back to you in 3 days.
Yeah.
When we started Current Wave, we just made a decision that we weren't going to be that kind of company. We wanted to be hands-on, white glove, kill you with service. The fact that Nathan just said what he said makes me happy because it means we're getting there. We are not a faceless software company. We want to be here with you guys.
0058 for Rick Cranston.
All right. Oh, something. So I think we're running short on time. So Rick, what I'm thinking we do is we answer some questions that have come in. For those of you guys who are only here with us for the half hour, we want to thank you so much for joining us. But if you guys can stick around, let's answer some questions. So I see a question from Mike. He asks, hey, Pete, are you using a specific LLM model or is it customized for Nathan? And what's your user adoption experience like? So let me take the first one. So I love the tech questions. We'll geek out for a second. So we have a pluggable model architecture, which means we can use whatever the latest and greatest LLM model on the frontier model set that we like. Currently, we're using GPT-4o, but just since we've been in business for a year, we've upgraded that underlying model 6 times, which means every time something latest and greatest comes out, it just goes in. Nathan and his Shoreline team don't have to pay attention to that. We're maintaining that on the back end as capabilities go up in the AI space. We just have our capabilities go up in the AI space. But it's super important to realize that we are customizing these models for each one of our customers. So you may have heard Nathan use the term flag, which is what we call a training option for the AI. So just Nathan and Shoreline, in the few months that they've been a customer, we've already made dozens of individual training improvements customized just for Shoreline with the AI model. One of our other customers who's been with us a little bit longer, like almost a year, we've already done 1,000 individual training customizations for the AI model just for them. So Nathan, even though we're using one of the big kind of frontier models under the hood, like GPT-4o, Nathan's experience is of his customized for Shoreline version of that model. And it seems like kind of a small thing, but it ends up being huge because we can teach the AI Shoreline's lingo, tribal knowledge, acronyms, ways of doing business unique to the other credit unions in the space. And so, Mike, the user adoption experience is super easy. Nathan maybe can talk about it for a second, but we had a half-hour training session with his team, and they were off and running, right? It's really intuitive to use. Nathan, what do you think about the user adoption?
Yeah. Well, thank you at least for answering the first question, because I have no idea what an LLM model is. It points to the fact, the level of trust we have here. No, I think from our side, what I really liked about it, you didn't touch on knowledge base as much during the demo side of it, but we have different data sets that are dependent on who needs access to it. So we have public web, we have internal, but then we also have an accounting and a compliance one. And so one of the cool things that I really liked about this was that based on the staff member and their role, they could have access to different knowledge bases. So for instance, do I really want my marketing department to have access to the accounting department to figure out how to do a fraud form? Absolutely not. I don't want them answering that question. So they won't even see that knowledge base. So during the onboarding, we could select which knowledge bases do we want them in. You obviously have roles. You have, I think, user, administrator, probably super admin for some. As long as we got that over to Pete, I think you had the accounts created within a day. User experience was easy. We got everybody in. We had it as part of the startup script. We had Ziggy pop open whenever anybody logs in to get them using it right off the bat. And I think we've cut that now, but there's just a shortcut on their desktop. So it's just easy access for them.
Yeah, Nathan, you bring up a good point. I think a lot of folks may be thinking in the back of their head about, well, what about permissions? What about roles? Mm-hmm. And, what about sets of information that we want to keep private, even from our own folks? So it's super common, like HR and training often has documents that are private. IT, another group that often has documents that are private that, the IT team needs to get at, but we don't want to be public for anybody. Like, here's the termination procedures for somebody, for example. It's really easy in this application to let a team like Nathan at Shoreline to literally tell us, hey, these documents going to live here, and these are the 10 people that can look at them. And this set of documents here, only 3 people can look at. And we can really dynamically set who can view certain documents. And by view documents, I mean, if you ask the AI, if you don't have permission to get to the HR docs, it's not going to answer an HR question or IT question or lending question or however you want to break that out. So we can be really fine-grained on the accessibility in a way that you as leaders at the credit union can feel super safe about what's in the public domain and what's not. All right. So let me see. I think that may be all the questions so far. If anybody has any questions who's still online with us, please feel free to type it in there and we are here to answer.
We did just get one in, Pete. Asks you how pricing works.
Oh, yeah, sure. So we do something I think that's a little different. We have what we call all-you-can-eat pricing model. And what we mean by that is if you've bought software before, you can have per-seat models, which is you pay for every user, or you can have consumption-based models where, in our example, you pay for each question you ask. I can tell you as the CTO of software companies my whole life, I hate those, right? I hate the per seat licensing because then it puts Nathan in a spot where, hey, I need a license, but hey, Pete, I don't know if you're only going to use it a couple times a week. I'd rather save the money. I hate that. It just leaves value on the table. So our all you can eat price is for like Nathan, all his employees have access, whether they use it 14 times a day or 14 times a year. We want everybody to be able to use it. And if Nathan adds some staff, his price doesn't go up. The only time I would ask Nathan to renegotiate our deal is if, for example, he acquired another credit union and tripled his size, right? Likewise with usage as well. If he uses it 100 times a day or 1,000 times a day, we don't hit you with any overage because nobody wants to open up their invoice at the end of the month and realize that budgeted amount just tripled, right? So flat, all you can eat pricing. We base it on the size of the credit union. But I think Nathan alluded to it. We're pretty proud of the fact that we're very affordable, especially for smaller credit unions. We're a small company. We understand small companies. We want to make this technology accessible to everyone. So Nathan, how does that fit with what you've seen in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. There's too many of the per seat licensing out there, and like I said, the growth is always a concern. But even just office licenses, even our phone licenses, we run into that where you have a new staff member, they're waiting 5, 6, 7 days to get that license activated and running. So it can be a burdensome. There's the word. It can be a burdensome process for us. So I love the pricing. It makes it easy to budget. I know our CFO loves it too. So yeah, I agree with everything you said.
Awesome. Looks like we got another question from Brandon. It said, what are the levels of accuracy on translating foreign languages? So I only speak English, so I'm going to speak just anecdotally from what folks have told us. But as you can imagine, with all of our customers, we have native speakers in dozens of languages who have kicked the tires with the AI. And I think the accuracy is good to very good, but not perfect. But for the purposes of why we're using the AI, it is more than sufficient, right? So the good news is we're not trying to sell this as a professional translation tool, right? I would never want you to use this to create a contract in French, right? That's not what it's for. But in day-to-day interactions with your members or with employees that maybe are more comfortable in another language, the AI's ability to do all the Q&A in, I think we have 50 languages built into the AI, including some pretty abstract ones. We have a credit union, I think also in Wisconsin, that has a large Hmong population. And they had asked us, does your AI work with Hmong? And I had no idea. So we just tried it. And sure enough, they took a chat they had received in Hmong from one of their members, dumped it into the AI and asked the AI, hey, can you translate this into English for me so I understand what the member's asking? And it did. We're not going to say it's perfect, but enough for this Q&A process, 100%.
And I could probably tap onto that just a little bit too. I know we serve a decent amount of Spanish speaking members, and we've had really good success using it for that. But one thing I actually want to ask this to you, Pete. Sorry, we didn't practice this one. In our little demo that we had, you had converted over to Mandarin. And in one of your questions or the answers was social security number, and then in brackets it said SSN, the next was ITIN. It kept the acronym the same, which I think is really important when you talk about legal documents, that you can make that reference to what's the native description to the field name on the form, which has always been a really big concern of ours using multi-language forms is, are we getting the grammar correctly? Are we getting the tone correct? I think that's a really nice thing that they can associate those two things.
Oh, great call out. Thanks, Nathan. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right. Well, Rick, do you want to close us off here?
Gosh, thank you so much all for joining the event today. We really appreciate the time and the effort. I hope it's been a valuable experience for everybody. reach out to any of us if questions come up or if you'd like to learn more. We look forward to continuing the dialogue.
All right. Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you, Nathan, for joining us, and Rick for
Thank
being
you,
such
Nathan.
a gracious host.
Yes. Take care.
Thank you all.